nearly jumped out of my skin when a firm knock echoed through my tiny apartment. It was nearly midnight in Naples, and I wasn't expecting anyone. Heart pounding, I crept to the door, barefoot on the cool tile. Through the peephole, I saw a tall, broad-shouldered man in a charcoal suit standing in the dimly lit hallway. He was a stranger, ruggedly handsome with chiseled features, and he held a phone in one hand. Why was he here at my door of all places? Another knock, more insistent this time. I swallowed hard. This was crazy. Just minutes ago, I had sent a text message in a moment of emotional desperation. It had been intended for my best friend Julia. But judging by the stranger outside, I realized with a jolt that it must have gone to the wrong number, and that wrong number belonged to who? My trembling fingers fumbled with the chain lock. I called through the door in Italian, "Chia?" "Who is it?" Trying to keep my voice from shaking. A low, smooth voice responded, "I believe you texted me by mistake. I'm here to answer your question." My breath caught. He was the one who received my text? What kind of person comes to a stranger's home in the middle of the night because of a single text? A spark of fear mingled with curiosity. I hesitated, but something about the man's tone was oddly calm, almost gentle. Through the peephole, his dark eyes glinted with patience rather than malice. I kept the chain latch in place as I opened the door a few inches. "You got my text?" I asked warily, peeking out. Only then did I notice the phone he held up, its screen glowing faintly. Even through the narrow gap, I could see my own sent message displayed in the chat. "Am I beautiful?" The sight made heat rush to my cheeks. That was indeed my text, my humiliating, unintended plea for validation that I never meant a stranger to see. The man nodded once. "See," and it sounded urgent, he said. Up close, his voice was deep and richly accented with Italian. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." My mind spun. I had been crying alone in my apartment all evening, reeling from what happened hours before. In a haze of tears and heartbreak-fueled wine, I typed out that message to Julia. I remembered hitting send and immediately regretting it. It was a pathetic question, but heartbreak does strange things to self-esteem. My ex-boyfriend Lorenzo's cruel words still rang in my ears. "Maybe I'd have stayed if you were as gorgeous as Valentina." That was the last thing he'd sneered during our breakup fight 2 days ago, after admitting he'd fallen for someone else, someone younger, someone prettier as he'd implied. I had been shattered. Even now, the thought made my chest ache. Lorenzo had been my first love, and he'd crushed my confidence as thoroughly as he had my heart. By tonight, loneliness and hurt had driven me to reach out to Julia for comfort. I typed that needy question, "Am I beautiful?" hoping my friend would counter all the horrible doubts swirling in my head. Instead, it seems I had texted this stranger, and now here he was, standing at my door answering the call I never meant to send. You wanted to make sure I was okay?" I repeated, still baffled and suspicious. Through the gap, I took him in. He looked to be in his early 30s, with strong, sharp features, his neatly trimmed black hair and the close-cropped stubble along his jaw framed, lips that were set in a concerned line. Under the suit jacket, his body looked powerful. He certainly could be dangerous. Yet I sensed no immediate threat. If anything, he radiated restrained energy, like he was waiting for my permission to proceed. He lowered the phone and offered a faint smile. "Your message? It sounded like someone in distress." I couldn't ignore it. Distress? I realized with embarrassment that the text might have read like a late-night cry for help. Perhaps he thought I was in some crisis. I was in crisis emotionally, but nothing life-threatening. I'm fine," I lied quickly. This was a mistake. My voice caught as I tried to find the words. Should I just thank him and send him away? This whole situation was absurd. People don't just show up because of a misdirected text. Unless this guy was some kind of creep or... "Who exactly are you?" I demanded softly. I tried to inject some steel into my tone despite my frazzled nerves. "How did you even find me?" The man's eyes flickered with something... amusement? "May I come in?" he asked instead of answering. It's a bit awkward talking. Like this, through a crack in the door. I bit my lip. Let a stranger in at midnight? Every sensible bone in my body screamed absolutely not. Yet, if he had ill intentions, surely he wouldn't have bothered knocking and talking. He could have forced his way in by now. He was built for it, no doubt. And he had found my address frighteningly easily. The fact that he asked politely gave me a strange reassurance that he wasn't here to hurt me. After a brief hesitation, I closed the door just long enough to slide off the chain. Keeping my hand on the knob, I opened it fully. My other hand lingered behind the door, gripping my phone, thumb hovering over the emergency call button just in case. The man stepped inside slowly, stopping a respectful distance from me. The hallway light fell upon him, and I caught my breath again, this time at the sight of him in full. He was tall, at least a foot taller than me, and up close, even more devastatingly handsome. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, giving his otherwise polished appearance a roguish edge. His eyes were a rich espresso brown, intense yet somehow warm as they focused on me. "Thank you," he said quietly as I allowed him entry. He glanced briefly around my apartment as I shut the door. I inwardly cringed. I hadn't tidied up in days. My modest living room was strewn with a couple of empty wine glasses and a mess of tissues from my earlier breakdown. The air still smelled faintly of the dinner I'd been too upset to finish, tomato and garlic from a half-eaten pasta. I crossed my arms over the old oversized t-shirt I wore, suddenly self-conscious about my appearance. My dark brown hair was piled messily atop my head, and I knew my eyes were probably red from crying. And here in front of me was the most attractive man I'd ever accidentally texted. In an impeccable suit, no less. Great. Just great. "I'm sorry," I began, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "About the text. I didn't mean to bother anyone. It was meant for my friend. You really didn't have to come here." He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "No apology needed," he said. "I'm the one who intruded." I just couldn't ignore it. "Why?" I blurted. "Why would you care? You don't even know me." For a moment, he didn't answer. He slid his phone into his jacket pocket. "Let's just say," he murmured, "I know a thing or two about sleepless nights and regrets. And I don't like the idea of anyone feeling how your message sounded." His words were cryptic but sincere. Up close, I caught a hint of his cologne, woodsy, with a smoky spice. It was dizzying. Or maybe that was just everything about this moment. I realized I still didn't know his name. He must have noticed my eyes searching him, because he offered, "My name is Dante." He gave a small, polite incline of his head, a strangely old-fashioned, charming gesture. "Dante Vitali." Dante. The name rolled off his tongue with a musical Italian lilt. My racing mind suddenly clicked. Dante Vitali? Why did that name sound familiar? A month ago, there had been a news report on TV about a local businessman named Dante Vitali who donated a fortune to rebuild an old Naples library. There was also a whisper of his family ties, something about the Vitali name being linked to organized crime in the past, though nothing was proven. The memory fluttered through my mind now as I took in the man before me. Could it be the same Dante? My heart skipped. If so, what did that mean? Was I standing alone with one of the Camorra's leaders? It would explain how he traced my number so quickly, and the faint aura of danger he carried despite his gentlemanly manners. Seeing recognition dawn in my eyes, Dante's lips curved in a wry half-smile. "I see you've heard of me," I swallowed. "You're that Dante Vitali? The one from the news?" I ventured, my voice barely above a whisper. He raised an eyebrow. "The news says many things." His tone had a hint of dry humor. "But yes, I am that Dante Vitali." There was a weight to his admission, as if it carried far more significance than a simple introduction. Suddenly I felt a jolt of fear. The Camorra, Naples Mafia, often lurked behind respectable fronts. Was I standing alone with one of its bosses? I took a half step back instinctively, my shoulders tensing. "So, you're some kind of..." I couldn't finish the sentence. "Criminal? Mafia boss?" The word stuck in my throat. Dante's face was unreadable for a moment. Then it softened. "I won't hurt you, Serena," he said gently, reading my fear. He slowly, deliberately reached into his jacket. I tensed, eyes widening, but he only pulled out his phone again. "Look." On the screen, he opened the message thread and showed it to me once more. "Am I beautiful?" He quoted my text quietly. "That's not something I could ignore." I felt a lump in my throat at hearing the words aloud. It sounded even more pitiable spoken. I wrapped my arms tighter around myself, as if that could shield me from my own vulnerability. "It was a stupid thing to send." "Maybe," Dante said softly. "But I'm guessing you had a reason." He glanced at the crumpled tissues on the coffee table, the half-empty wine bottle. "You've been crying." I swiped self-consciously at my cheeks, where dried tears surely left a mess of mascara. "That doesn't matter. I'm fine," I insisted unconvincingly. Dante's dark eyes flashed with something like anger, not at me, but on my behalf. "Who made you doubt your own beauty?" he asked, a hard edge creeping into his voice. "Was it whoever you meant that text for?" My throat tightened. The fresh wave of hurt from Lorenzo's memory gave me the courage to answer honestly. "My ex," I admitted. He left me for someone else, and not so kindly. He said I wasn't enough, not pretty enough." My voice faltered, humiliation and pain coloring each word. Dante's expression darkened, confirming my half-formed suspicion about his ties. It was the kind of look that could make grown men cower. "What's his name?" he asked evenly. I hesitated. "Why?" "Because," Dante replied, his tone lethal in its calmness, "I'd like to have a little chat with the man." "Who made you think you had to ask a stranger such a question?" Despite my misery, a startled half-laugh escaped me. I couldn't help it. His words were so outrageous, so serious that it was almost funny. "A chat? That's really not necessary." Dante's face remained stony. "Humor me." "Lorenzo," I sighed, deciding there was no harm. Lorenzo was long gone from my life now anyway. "But really, you don't have to." "Lorenzo," Dante repeated, as if committing it to memory. "Surname?" "D'Angelo," I said before I could think twice. Dante's jaw tightened and I quickly added, "Please don't actually do anything. It's my problem to deal with." I was almost afraid. I'd unleashed some avenging fury by giving a name. He studied me for a moment, then gave a small shrug that made his broad shoulders ripple under the suit. "As you wish," he said, though a dangerous glint remained in his eye. "But if you change your mind, I can assure you Lorenzo would regret every unkind word he uttered to you." I believed him wholeheartedly. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me, a hurt, betrayed part, found the idea of Dante scaring the hell out of my worthless ex rather satisfying. Another part of me, the sensible part, was alarmed at how quickly Dante had offered to step into a violent role on my behalf. I cleared my throat, trying to shift focus. "I appreciate the gesture, but it's not necessary." "I'll survive." I managed a weak smile. "Heartbreak isn't fatal, so they say." Dante's eyes softened again. "No, not fatal, but it can feel like it is." There was a quiet authority in his tone, as if he spoke from experience. "And you will survive, Bella." The casual endearment slipped from him easily, the Italian Bella turning the simple word beautiful into a caress. "That man who hurt you is a fool." Felt my cheeks warm at both his words, and the way he said Bella. It had been so long since someone called me beautiful without irony or insult. "Thank you," I murmured, ducking my head. I realized my stance had relaxed somewhat, the initial fear ebbing. Dante had a strange effect on me, intimidating one moment, disarming the next. An awkward silence settled. Dante glanced at the door, as if deciding something. "Forgive me for being forward," he said. "But have you eaten anything tonight?" The question threw me. "What?" "It's a simple question, Serena." My name sounded melodic when he said it. "Have you had dinner?" My stomach nodded. In fact, I hadn't eaten more than 2 bites of that pasta hours ago. I'm not really hungry," I lied unconvincingly. Dante simply nodded, not pressing. "How about some fresh air, then?" he offered. I find that it helps clear a troubled mind to step outside, even for a short walk. He must have noticed the hesitation on my face, because he added, "Just a walk. Public streets. You can even hold on to your phone ready to call the police if I misbehave." A hint of tease colored his tone, a faint curve on his lips. I couldn't help a tiny smile at that. "You have a dark sense of humor." "Guilty," he said, placing a hand lightly over his heart. "But I'm serious. A short walk. If at any point you want to turn back, I'll walk you right home." A part of me couldn't believe. I was even considering it. Going out past midnight with a stranger? No. An infamous stranger was reckless beyond measure. Yet another part of me was desperately curious about this man who appeared like a dark night in my lonely hour. He had already proven oddly kind, listening to me, validating my feelings, even offering to defend my honor in a disturbingly concrete way. And I had to admit, I did feel a suffocating cabin fever in my apartment, the remnants of my crying jag clinging to the furniture. Perhaps a breath of night air would do me good. Besides, my gut told me Dante wouldn't harm me. Intuition or insanity, as Julia would say. Either way, I found myself nodding. Okay, a walk sounds nice. Dante's smile widened just a fraction, enough to reveal a trace of relief. Ben, good. I grabbed my keys and a light cardigan from a hook by the door. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror above the shoe cabinet. My chestnut hair was a mess, eyes puffy. Grimacing, I hurriedly pulled the hair tie out. Letting my wavy locks fall around my shoulders, I finger-combed it as best I could. It was a small vanity, but if I was stepping out with Dante, I didn't want to look completely miserable. I then quickly swiped under my eyes to clear any smudged mascara. The effect was still a far cry from glamorous. Wore only that baggy t-shirt, it doubled as my sleep shirt, and black leggings, but it would have to do. When I slipped on my flats and turned around, Dante was politely averting his gaze, studying a framed photo. On the wall, a picture of Julia, and me at the beach last summer. As he noticed me watching, he gestured to the photo. Your friend? My best friend Julia, I supplied. The one I meant to text tonight, actually. I managed a sheepish chuckle. Ah, Dante chuckled softly too. Then I owe Julia my thanks for the serendipity of that typo. I shook my head in disbelief as I opened the door to leave, half expecting to wake up from a surreal dream. This is utterly insane, I murmured under my breath. Possibly, Dante agreed, standing close behind me. But sometimes the best things in life are. His words, simple as they were, made my heart flutter unexpectedly. Out on the street, Naples was quieting down for the night. A few distant Vespa motors echoed off the narrow cobblestone alleyways, and the golden glow of street lamps bathed the old buildings in a honeyed light. The air was warm and carried a briny hint of the sea. Dante and I walked side by side along the sidewalk, our footsteps resounding softly. For a minute, neither of us spoke. I snuck a sideways glance up at Dante. In the hush, his face looked more relaxed, almost peaceful. He slipped his hands into his trouser pockets as he walked, appearing at ease, but his eyes subtly roved our surroundings. I got the sense he was always on alert, even in these peaceful moments. The thought that he might have enemies lurking in the shadows sent a little shiver through me. Cold? Dante asked, noticing. Before I could answer, he shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. It was warm from his body heat and far too large. But the gesture was so swift and smooth I had no time to protest. Thank you, I said softly, clutching the lapels around myself. The jacket smelled like him, sandalwood and a whiff of expensive cigars. The scent made me unexpectedly giddy, as though I'd slipped into a story far removed from my own mundane life. Here I was, strolling at midnight through Naples under streetlights, wrapped in a Mafia boss's jacket. It felt cinematic and frightening all at once. We turned down a lane that led toward the waterfront. The sky was a navy canvas pricked by stars, and the Bay of Naples spread out before us in the distance, its dark waters reflecting the moonlight. Dante guided us to a balustrade overlooking the sloping city and the sea beyond. It was one of those spots only locals knew, quiet and scenic. I leaned on the railing, taking a deep breath of the salty air. Beautiful, isn't it? Dante said, resting his forearms on the rail beside me. I glanced at him and found he was looking at me, not the view. In that moment, the way the moonlit night gentled his strong features, Dante himself looked strikingly beautiful. I blushed and turned my gaze outward. Yes, Naples is beautiful at night. After a pause, I added in a more tentative voice. I haven't come out here in a long time. I'm glad you did tonight, he said. You know, when I first read your text, he trailed off, choosing his words. I had an image of someone very sad and very alone. I'm relieved to find you are not alone, Serena. I frowned slightly. But I was alone. I mean, I am. I gestured vaguely to myself, thinking of my empty apartment and emptier heart. You're with me now, Dante pointed out, and hopefully feeling a little less sad. I met his eyes. Yes, actually. I realized with some surprise that the ache inside had receded since Dante appeared. My problems hadn't vanished. Lorenzo's betrayal still stung. But in the space of an hour, my mind had shifted focus to the intriguing man beside me. It's strange. I was miserable not long ago. Now I'm distracted, he chuckled. I suppose I can settle for being a distraction. A welcome one, I amended with a shy smile. Dante held my gaze, and I felt that flutter again low in my stomach. There was an intimacy brewing in this quiet midnight hour, the kind that made the rest of the world fade. For a brief, unguarded moment, I allowed myself to admire him openly, the masculine elegance of his posture, the intelligence that tempered the danger in his eyes, and the surprising kindness he'd shown me. Who would have thought a Mafia boss could be kind? If that's indeed what he was. My curiosity got the better of me. Dante, I began softly. Why did you really come? I needed to hear his answer plainly. I mean, you don't actually make a habit of rescuing random women who text you, do you? He gave a small laugh. No, this is definitely a first for me. Then he turned serious. Honestly, when I saw your message, it struck a nerve. He drummed his fingers lightly on the railing. I have a younger sister, he said unexpectedly. She went through something similar years ago. An abusive boyfriend who tore her self-worth to shreds. His jaw tightened at the memory. I saw the aftermath, how she doubted everything about herself. I never want to see a woman go through that if I can help. I watched him in profile, seeing both anger and tenderness there. Is your sister? She's better now, he said, a note of relief in his voice. Married to a good man with 2 little kids. But back then, I wished I could have spared her that pain. Perhaps I couldn't help her, but tonight, when I read your text, he glanced at me. I thought maybe I could help someone, even a stranger. A warm wave of gratitude swelled in my chest. That's incredibly sweet of you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he murmured. All I've done is show up uninvited and drag you outside. It helped? I insisted. I really didn't want to be alone with my thoughts tonight. So thank you. Impulsively, I reached out and touched his hand where it rested on the railing, giving it a gentle squeeze. His skin was warm, his hand solid and strong. The contact sent a little thrill through me, and apparently through him as well. He turned his palm over, catching my fingers in his. We both paused at the deliberate way our hands now interlocked. My heart thudded loud in my ears, and I made no move to withdraw. Dante's thumb stroked lightly across the back of my hand. It was such a tender gesture from a man who likely wasn't known for tenderness. The heat in his eyes when I looked up at him made my breath hitch. Serena, he said, my name almost a whisper. There was an unmistakable desire there, but also restraint, as if he were waging an internal battle. I felt it too, a magnetic pull drawing me towards him. My lips parted in anticipation or uncertainty, I wasn't sure. Suddenly, the quiet night was shattered by the screech of tires. A black sedan whipped around the corner onto the street behind us. Headlights off, engine roaring. Dante reacted instantaneously. Down! He barked, releasing my hand and snaking an arm around my waist. He pulled me away from the railing just as a spray of gunfire erupted from the car. Pop, pop, pop! The gunshots rang out, pocking the stone balustrade where we'd been standing not a second before. My scream got caught in my throat as Dante hauled me down behind the low wall, shielding my body with his. My ears rang and my heart exploded into a frantic tempo. That was gunfire. Actual gunfire! I couldn't process anything beyond clinging to Dante's arms as he covered me. The car skidded to a stop on the road above our lookout point. Stay down, Dante growled against my ear. Gone was the gentle warmth in his voice. Now it was all lethal edge. He drew a gun from inside his jacket so quickly, I barely registered it. A sleek black pistol, looking like an extension of his arm. My blood ran cold. He was armed. This was really happening. I huddled against the stone, fear freezing me in place. 3 men spilled out of the sedan, silhouettes with pistols in hand. One shouted, Vitali, vieni fuori, bastardo. Come out, you bastard. My Italian was fluent. I caught every threatening nuance. These men were here for Dante. Dante's eyes flashed fury. He peeked over the wall, then pressed his back to it, keeping me tucked safely in the corner. Merda, he swore under his breath. They followed me. My heart pounded even harder if that was possible. Who are they? I whispered shakily. People with very poor judgment, Dante muttered, daring another glance. Bullets ricocheted off the stone, one zipping so close above us that dust rained onto my hair. I bit back a whimper. Dante's arm tightened around me protectively. I'm sorry, he breathed, voice tight with regret that seemed strangely personal given the circumstances. I never should have put you in danger. Before I could respond, Dante pivoted up from cover with frightening swiftness. He fired 2 shots in quick succession, his movements efficient and precise as a panther. A yelp of pain told me one of the attackers had been hit. My hands flew over my ears at the deafening retort of Dante's gun. In the faint glow from distant streetlights, I saw one of the men fall while the others scrambled behind their car for cover. One of the remaining assailants blindly sprayed bullets toward our position, shouting, "Prendiamolo!" "Let's get him." Dante ducked and pressed me further down. We were effectively pinned. Behind us was only the steep drop down the hillside to the bay. He leaned close, his lips at my temple so I could hear him over the chaos. "Listen to me. When I say go, run back toward the alley we came from, okay?" My blood ran cold. "I'm not leaving you," I hissed, clenching the lapels of his jacket that still hung on me. "I can handle this," he insisted, eyes blazing. "But I need you safe." Another hail of gunfire chipped at the stones. I flinched. This felt surreal. A night that had begun with heartbreak had turned into a scene from a gangster film. I should be terrified out of my mind, and I was. But the thought of leaving Dante alone against these men also filled me with dread of another kind. "Ready?" he asked, preparing to pop up again and cover my retreat. I shook my head, tears of fear in my eyes. "Dante!" A sudden blare of sirens in the distance cut me off. The attackers heard it too. The wail of approaching police cars echoed off the hillside. Apparently someone in the city had reported the gunshots. "Polizia!" One of the gunmen spat. "Retreat!" In a scramble, the two uninjured men dragged their wounded comrade back into their car. Dante peeked as the sedan squealed off into the night, tires burning rubber. He didn't fire after them, likely not wanting to tangle with the police himself. Instead, he exhaled slowly, then turned his attention to me. "Are you hurt?" His hands ran swiftly over my arms and sides, checking for bullet wounds. I shook my head, though I wasn't entirely sure. I was numb and shaking. I stared at Dante in pure shock. He gingerly brushed a dusting of stone debris out of my hair. "You're okay," he said, sounding like he was reassuring himself as much as me. The sirens grew closer. "Dante," I managed to croak. "The police," he grimaced. "They can't find me here." There was no time to explain, but I understood. An infamous man like him likely had a complicated relationship with the authorities. Dante stood and helped me up, keeping a steadying arm around my waist because my legs were jelly. "We have to go, now." Leaning into his support, I let him guide me quickly back up the lane. We slipped into the same labyrinth of alleys we had strolled peacefully just minutes earlier. Now my heart hammered for a completely different reason, adrenaline spiking through my veins. Dante led me through the twisting back streets with confident swiftness, clearly knowing the city's nooks and crannies intimately. Each time the sirens grew louder, he adjusted our route, keeping to the shadows. Finally, when the night fell silent again, Dante slowed. We emerged a few blocks away near a quiet piazza, both of us panting from the hurried escape. My thoughts finally caught up enough to realize I was clutching Dante's hand in a death grip as he towed me along. I released it immediately, my face flushing despite everything. "I'm sorry," I gasped, still breathless. Dante stopped and turned to me. Under a lone street lamp, his face was a portrait of remorse and anger and concern all at once. "Don't apologize," he said, cupping my face suddenly with both hands. His palms were slightly rough, but his touch was infinitely gentle. "Dio, Serena, I'm sorry. This is all my fault." "Those men," I whispered, my voice trembling. "They were trying to kill you." He nodded grimly. "Rivals. I didn't anticipate. They'd be bold enough to attack. Tonight." A muscle in his jaw twitched. "You should never have been exposed to that." I should have been more careful. I was shaking now, the gravity of what happened crashing over me. This is insane. My voice broke. "But you didn't," Dante said firmly. He pulled me against his chest, wrapping his arms around me. I stiffened, then sank into the embrace, too rattled to do anything but accept the comfort. His body was solid and reassuring, and he murmured softly, "You're safe." "I've got you." We stood like that for a long moment. I closed my eyes, listening to his heartbeat thudding under my ear. It was slowing down, as was my own. In his arms, I truly did feel safe, which was paradoxical given the hail of bullets. We'd narrowly escaped bullets, meant for him. Eventually, I pulled back just enough to look up at him. "Dante, I don't understand any of this." His hand smoothed a lock of hair from my face. "I know, and I owe you an explanation." His brow furrowed. "But first, I need to get you somewhere safe. If those bastards realize they failed, they might come back." A spike of fear lanced through me. "Will they?" I instinctively pressed closer to him, fingers curling into his shirt. Dante shook his head, his expression hard. Not tonight. They lost their chance, and with the police alerted, they'll scatter for now. He paused. Still, I can't risk taking you back to your apartment just yet. They'll know who you are. My blood ran cold. What? How would they? I realized the implication. They saw him with me. They could use me to get to him. Oh, God. Hey, look at me, Dante said, tipping my chin up. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise on my life. His eyes burned with sincerity. I found I believed him wholeheartedly, whether that was wise or not. Okay, I breathed. So, what do we do? We go to a secure location, Dante said. Somewhere they can't reach you. He meant his own safe house or something. No doubt. I hesitated. Running off with a Mafia boss in the dead of night after a shootout. Was this really my life right now? But what choice did I have? If I returned home, I could be in danger and alone. With Dante, at least I felt protected. And, I admitted silently, a part of me didn't want to part from him yet. The thought of saying goodbye to him now, after everything, felt wrong. All right, I agreed quietly. I'll go with you. Relief flashed across his face. Thank you for trusting me. Dante took my hand once more, and we set off through the deserted streets. He guided me to an inconspicuous black car parked along a curb. I vaguely recalled it had been outside my building when we left for the walk, likely his personal vehicle. He opened the passenger door for me. I slid in, too drained to comment on the bulletproof-looking exterior or the fact that the driver's seat had a handgun resting on it until he quickly moved it to a side compartment. Within moments, we were driving through the city. Dante handled the wheel with one hand, the other reaching over to squeeze my knee reassuringly. We're almost there, he said. He navigated to a more upscale district by the water, pulling into an underground garage beneath a modern high-rise. We took a private elevator that opened directly into a penthouse apartment. The contrast between my simple flat and this space was startling, even in low light. I could see floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the bay and Mount Vesuvius beyond. The decor was sleek, minimalistic, and expensive-looking. Polished marble floors, designer furniture, tasteful artwork. It was a home that screamed both luxury and discretion. Dante flicked on a few lights, casting a warm glow in the living area. I hovered near the elevator, suddenly feeling out of place. I was still wearing his jacket and my wrinkled t-shirt and leggings, smeared with dirt from our tumble. I must look a fright against such opulence. Dante turned to me, concern returning to his features. You're pale. Come sit. He gently guided me to the white leather sofa. I'll get you some water. He disappeared into what looked like the kitchen. I sank into the couch, eyes wandering. Despite the high-end decor, there were personal touches. A shelf of framed photos on a sideboard caught my eye. I glimpsed what looked like a younger Dante with an older gentleman. His father, maybe, and another with a young woman who shared. Dante's eyes, likely the sister he mentioned, smiling with two small children. These hints of Dante's life humanized him in my eyes. He wasn't just some mysterious mobster. He was also a brother, an uncle, a man with a family. Dante returned with a glass of water. I hadn't realized how thirsty I was until the cool glass was in my hands. I sipped it gratefully, the water soothing my dry throat. He sat down beside me, leaving a respectful distance. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The night's adrenaline was ebbing, leaving exhaustion and a kind of astonished gratitude in its wake. I owe you an explanation, Dante said quietly, breaking the silence. I set the glass down on the coffee table. You don't have to. I think I pieced some of it together. He gave me a rueful smile. Let me guess. You think I'm some kind of gangster? I managed a slight laugh. Well, you did have armed men trying to shoot you in the street, and you returned fire very effectively. So yes, that's my guess. Dante sighed, running a hand through his hair. I won't lie to you. My family, we have a reputation. Some of it's exaggerated, some isn't. He looked away, as if ashamed. I handle business for my family. Some of it is legitimate, like the charity work you might have seen in the news. Some of it, less so. I appreciated that he didn't try to euphemize too much. Thank you for telling me the truth, I said softly. He met my eyes, surprised. You're not afraid? Now that you know? I took a moment to assess my feelings. The rational part of me knew I should be absolutely terrified of a self-confessed criminal, even if he was my savior tonight. Yet, as I looked at Dante, at the concern etched on his face, at the way he sat tensely as if awaiting my judgment. Fear was not what I felt. Instead, an overwhelming sense of connection and compassion washed over me. I probably should be afraid, I admitted. Maybe I'm foolish. But no, Dante, I'm not afraid of you. He closed his eyes for a second, as if in relief. You should be, you know. His voice was nearly a whisper. I'm not a good man, Serena. I found myself shaking my head. I don't believe that. He opened his mouth to protest, but I continued. You risked your life to make sure I was all right tonight. You protected me. You brought me somewhere safe. That's not what a bad man does. Dante let out a hollow laugh. Perhaps your definition of bad and mine differ. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and stared at his clasped hands. I've done things that would make you run out that door and never look back. I inched closer and cautiously, placed a hand on his shoulder. Maybe you have, but I can only judge you by what I've seen. And what I've seen is someone who cares, who protects. I hesitated, then added gently, someone who answered a cry, from a lonely heart when no one else did. Dante turned his head to look at me, his expression tortured. You are remarkably forgiving, he said, voice husky. Maybe, or maybe I just see the good in you, I murmured. He reached up, covering my hand on his shoulder with his own. You shouldn't, he said, but he didn't pull away from my touch. Serena, I've dragged you into my dangerous world. Tonight you could have been hurt, or worse, because of me. I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see me again after I take you home. Something in my chest constricted at those last words. Never see him again? The thought caused an unexpected pain. I barely knew Dante, yet after everything we'd shared in these intense hours, I felt tied to him by invisible threads. It was more than gratitude. It was as if our souls had brushed against each other in the darkness and now refused to part. Instead of answering immediately, I moved my hand from his shoulder to his cheek, gently turning his face fully toward me. He tensed slightly under my touch, as if unsure how to respond to tenderness. Dante, I said softly, I'm not sorry for any of it. His brow creased. You should be cursing the moment you sent that text. No, I whispered. If I hadn't sent it, I never would have met you. My heart thumped loudly in the silence that followed my words. Dante's eyes searched mine, disbelief mingling with a yearning hope. After everything, you still... He couldn't finish, but he didn't need to. I knew what he meant, what he couldn't quite ask. Do you still want me here? Aren't you afraid to be near me? To answer, I did something that sent my pulse skyrocketing. I leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to the corner of his mouth. It was a feather-light touch, barely a real kiss, but it was enough to feel the warmth of him, to make us both suck in a breath at the same time. Dante shifted then, turning to face me fully. His hand came up to cradle the back of my head, fingers threading into my hair. Serena, he murmured, voice thick with emotion. He was giving me one last chance to pull away, to deny what was about to happen. I didn't pull away. Instead, I closed the small gap between us, capturing his lips with mine in a real kiss this time. What started as a cautious meeting of lips quickly ignited. Dante made a low, deep groan and pulled me closer, his other arm snaking around my waist. The dam of restraint broke and months, no, years, of pent-up longing poured out of me in that kiss. Longing to be wanted, to be cherished, to feel alive again. Dante kissed me like a man starved, with a hunger and intensity that took my breath away. His mouth was both tender and demanding against mine, and I answered in kind, sliding my arms around his neck. Heat flared between us. I felt myself being guided backward until my back met the cool leather of the sofa. Dante hovered over me, supporting his weight on one arm so as not to crush me, our lips never breaking contact. His jacket slipped from my shoulders onto the floor, forgotten. We finally parted for air, both of us breathing hard. My mind spun. I'd never been kissed like that in my life. Lorenzo's kisses had never left me shaking, lit from within like a spark about to become a flame. But Dante kissed me as if I were the very air he needed. Sei bellissima, he murmured against my lips. Italian for, you are beautiful. The words vibrated through me, dispelling the last shadow of Lorenzo's cruel voice in my head. I responded by pulling Dante back down to me, claiming his lips again. My hands explored the broad planes of his back through his shirt, feeling the hard muscles beneath. He shuddered at my touch and deepened the kiss. his tongue sliding against mine in a sensual dance that made my toes curl. Emboldened by his response, I let my fingers move to the front of his shirt, fumbling with the buttons. I wanted to feel him, skin to skin. I needed the proof that this fierce, protective man was real and here with me. Dante broke the kiss, breathing raggedly. "Serena, wait." He caught my wrist gently, his eyes dark with desire yet laced with concern. "Are you sure?" It floored me that he was still so thoughtful, even now. My heart melted. I was more sure of this, of him, than anything in a long time. "I'm sure," I whispered. "I want you, Dante." Whatever thin thread of control Dante had left snapped. A growl of approval rumbled in his chest as he captured my mouth again, fiercer this time. I gasped into the kiss as he swiftly helped me tug off his dress shirt, revealing the solid expanse of his chest and shoulders. I ran my hands over his bare skin, marveling at the heat of him, the slight roughness of a few old scars under my fingertips. Dante made a sound somewhere between a groan and a purr as my hands explored him. "Dio mio," he muttered, trailing hot kisses along my jaw to my neck. I tilted my head back, eyes fluttering shut as he found a sensitive spot just below my ear. He sucked gently and I whimpered, clutching him closer. My entire body was coming alive under his touch. He tugged at the hem of my baggy t-shirt. "May I?" he asked, voice strained with restraint. I answered by sitting up enough for him to peel it off. Dante sucked in a sharp breath as it fell away. I'd forgotten I was only in a thin lace bra beneath. I hadn't exactly planned for anyone to see me in it tonight. But the heated admiration in Dante's gaze banished any shyness. "Bellissima," he whispered again reverently. He traced a finger along the lacy edge of my bra, inadvertently teasing the swell of my breast. I trembled, a flush heating my skin that had nothing to do with embarrassment now. I pulled him back down to me, needing to feel his lips on mine. Our mouths met in an urgent, searing kiss. Dante's hand slid up my side, raising goosebumps, then closed over my breast through the lace. I gasped at the jolt of pleasure that shot through me. Encouraged, he gently kneaded, his thumb flicking over my nipple until it pebbled beneath the fabric. I moaned softly, arching into his touch. The sound seemed to spur Dante on. In one smooth motion, he scooped me up off the couch. I wrapped my legs around his waist instinctively as he carried me across the room. Our lips never parted for long. Between dizzying kisses, I realized he was taking me to the bedroom. He nudged a door open and laid me down atop a plush king-sized bed. The city lights filtering through the window bathed us in a soft glow. Dante hovered over me, propping himself on one elbow, the other hand stroking a stray hair from my face. "Last chance to change your mind," he murmured, though his eyes burned with desire and hope. In response, I drew him in for another soul-stealing kiss. There was no going back. I wanted this. I wanted him more than anything. That was all the confirmation Dante needed. The next moments blurred in a rush of heated caresses and shed clothing. I found myself drowning in sensation. Dante's lips exploring every inch of my skin, Dante's whispers in Italian praising my beauty, the gentle scrape of his stubble across my sensitive flesh, the way he murmured my name like a vow. When we finally came together, it was with a desperate tenderness. Dante moved slowly at first, checking my comfort. His forehead pressed to mine as we clung to each other. I wrapped myself around him, embracing the sweet ache and overwhelming fullness, tears pricking my eyes at the sheer intimacy of it. "Tiho gota," he started, voice rough, then switched to English. "I've got you, Bella." He kissed away a stray tear that escaped down my cheek. "I'm here." What began as slow and gentle soon built into a passionate crescendo. Our bodies found a rhythm, each meeting of hips drawing us both closer to the edge. My world narrowed to the point of contact between us, to the feeling of Dante's strong body intertwined with mine, his breath hot against my neck as he groaned my name. It was exquisite, like shattering and becoming whole all at once. My release hit me suddenly, a cry of ecstasy spilling from my lips. Dante followed moments after, a low guttural sound rumbling from his chest as he held me tight, both of us trembling through the waves of bliss. In the aftermath, Dante collapsed beside me, gathering my spent, shaking form against him. Our limbs tangled under the sheets he must have pulled over us at some point. My cheek rested on his chest, and I could feel the rapid thrum of his heart gradually steadying, matching the slowing cadence of my own. For a long while, neither of us spoke. We simply lay there in each other's arms. The silence filled, only with the distant sound of waves on the bay and our breathing. I was the first to break the quiet. "Dante?" I whispered. He tilted my chin up so he could see my face, Yes, amore? The endearment slipped out naturally, and it warmed me to my core. I bit my lip, suddenly shy now that the fiery haze of passion was settling into a tender glow. Earlier tonight, I asked a question of you, even if I didn't mean to. His eyes softened, and a smile tugged at his lips. The question that started all this. I nodded. I asked if I was beautiful. Dante brushed the back of his fingers along my flushed cheek, and I answered you, Bella, more than once. Say it again, I whispered, needing to hear it clearly in the quiet of this perfect moment. Dante gently rolled me onto my back and hovered above me, his face solemn with emotion. Serena, sei bellissima, he said slowly, deliberately. You are beautiful. He kissed my forehead. Beautiful in every way. A kiss to my nose. Strong, resilient, brave. A kiss to my lips, lingering and full of love. Never doubt it. Tears of joy gathered in my eyes now. With you, I don't think I ever could, I confessed. He rested his forehead against mine, speaking softly. Stay with me. I know this is sudden. I know we barely know each other, but I feel like I've known you forever. He inhaled shakily. I don't want this to end with tonight. I can't let you walk away now. Not after I've found you. My heart soared. The intensity of his words might have frightened me if I didn't feel exactly the same. I don't want to leave, I whispered. I feel safe with you. And alive. Dante closed his eyes for a moment, as if thanking some higher power. You will be safe with me. I will fix this, so those men never threaten you again. I swear. I touched his cheek. As long as you're okay. I was so scared for you. The thought of losing him, absurd as it might seem after just one night, was unbearable. He turned his head to press a tender kiss to my palm. It'll take more than a few idiots to get rid of me. His voice was light, trying to make me smile. But then he added seriously, I will do everything in my power to keep you, out of harm's way from now on. Maybe we can keep each other safe, I offered, emotionally as well. Dante smiled, that rare, genuine smile that made him devastatingly handsome. Deal, he murmured, sealing it with another kiss. As the first hints of dawn lightened the sky beyond the windows, I found myself curled against Dante's side, exhaustion finally pulling at me. He held me close, stroking my hair, both of us quietly reveling in the unexpected turn our lives had taken tonight. Just yesterday, I had been convinced that my world was ending, that I was unlovable, unwanted, not beautiful enough. And Dante? He had likely been on his own, locked in a dangerous life with a guarded heart. Yet a single misdirected text had brought us together, colliding our worlds in a way neither could have anticipated. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was also the most alive either of us had felt in years. Before I drifted off, I heard Dante's low voice. You know, I think I should be the one asking you something. I fought sleep a moment longer, humming, I felt his lips in my hair, and his arm tighten protectively around me. Am I dreaming? He whispered. Because meeting you feels like a dream. Serena? I smiled against his chest, eyes closed, and answered softly. If this is a dream, I don't ever want to wake up. Dante pressed one more kiss to my forehead. Neither do I, Bella. Neither do I, wrapped securely in the arms of the Mafia boss who had become my unexpected savior. I slipped into peaceful sleep. In the coming days, there would be many challenges to face, dangers to overcome, past wounds to heal. But together, we would face them. For now, as dawn broke over the Italian skyline, two souls found solace in each other. I had my answer at last. I was beautiful, not just in someone's eyes, but in my own heart as well. And Dante, against all odds, had found something pure and true in the midst of his perilous life. A mistaken text had sparked an extraordinary love, the kind that arrives unbidden but transforms everything. And as our intertwined destinies unfurled, one thing was certain. Neither of us would ever again walk this world alone.